You just slid your plate across the table, or poured the last coffee. You didn't ask for anything back. You didn't think about it. The bread is bread. The coffee is coffee. But ask the same friend what they really think about your partner or their own job today. The careful pause is almost diagnostic. Bread out, secret in. That tiny asymmetry is doing some very old work. Why do those two motions still travel in opposite directions? That's the question we're going to answer. In the early 1980s, an anthropologist named Nicholas Blurton Jones set up a long-running field study among the Hadza people on the dry flats east of Lake Eyasi in northern Tanzania. With Kristen Hawkes and James O'Connell, he began logging what people ate, what they killed, and how the bundles moved through the camp. The folklore story is generous. Men risk their lives charging zebras. The meat is divided fairly, big catches winning respect and trading future shares. Tidy contract. The Lake Eyasi notebooks contradicted it. The best hunters did not reliably get better future returns. Tubers and honey, gathered quietly by a teenage girl, stayed in her mother's hands. There were no tidy contracts. There were slow habits. Hawkes proposed in a 1991 paper with O'Connell and Blurton Jones that the real unit wasn't the meat. It was being seen. A hunter bringing down a big mammal in front of the whole camp was performing. She called this in a 2002 paper showing off. The mechanism was in language first proposed in the 1970s by Amatz Zahavi in Israel's Negev, a handicap signal. It was honest because it cost the actor something, which means human food sharing did not begin as a contract, it began as theater. And that's where it gets strange. Across the Atlantic at the same time, the same show was running. In 1984 and 1985, Hillard Kaplan and Kim Hill, working among the Ache of eastern Paraguay, did something the Hadza work only implied. They built a clean quantitative ledger. For more than 200 hunter days, they recorded who ate what, in what portion, from what animal. Meat, peccary, paca, howler monkey was shared camp-wide, roughly equally, regardless of who had made the kill. Plant foods were family private. Parents fed their small children. Adults who walked over and asked were politely turned away. Two currencies in one body. Wild meat was public. Garden food was private. In a 2001 follow-up by Michael Gervin with Kaplan and Hill, the pattern held even after contact with state settlements. Meat across the household, garden, produce not. What's hidden in those numbers is yours. The bread at the center of a table is the meat at the center of a village. The private loaf you set aside for tomorrow is the mother's pile of plantains in Paraguay. The lines are not morals. They are mechanics. Watch your own hands at the next lunch. The default is the same, 3,000 generations later. To feel how strange that default actually is, look at our closest living relatives. The chimpanzees of the Gombe forest, watched continuously by Jane Goodall since 1960. Since the late 1990s, Ian Gilby and colleagues have run the share math. The numbers do not flatter us. A chimpanzee with a small monkey carcass will share it under specific conditions. When beggars are persistent, when the beggar is maternal kin, when an ally male is calling in a favor. Most of the time, he eats in the tree. Junior males pace below, demoted. Even more striking, chimpanzees almost never transport plant food to share. Fruit, leaves, tubers consumed on the spot. They don't carry, they don't pool. They don't have a village currency at all. They have a mine here now default. So if you ever eat a sandwich alone in a stairwell, don't be embarrassed. You're running deep ape software. But you also, 3 times a day, share the village currency kind with whoever is in front of you. Which raises the awkward question, how did the public currency habit survive into a time when everyone expects their secrets to be kept? For that, you have to look at the next great gear shift. And it's almost embarrassing how small it looks. In 1993, the British anthropologist Robin Dunbar published a striking figure. About 150. the size of the social group a human brain can stably keep. Earlier primates kept theirs together by sitting in pairs for hours, picking through each other's fur. Grooming. For a 150-person group, you'd have to spend close to a third of every waking hour grooming. Mathematically impossible. So Dunbar argued most fully in his 1996 book, Grooming, Gossip, and the Evolution of Language. That language evolved as vocal grooming. 3 people can hear one sentence at once. A whole group can sit around a fire and be bonded at once. But the switch came with an unforeseen side effect. Once you can talk in air to a group, you can talk about absent third parties. You can be honest with one friend about another in a way you will never be in front of the second. Information became freely groomable in a way no one had planned. Food never could. And here's what nobody tells you. The first time modern humans got a double life, it wasn't in any palace or courtroom. It was at the edge of a fire, someone leaning in. That, not theater, not state power, not language itself, is where the species picked up the habit of saying one thing in front, another thing behind. Sharing public. Gossip deniable. The contract that runs the species. 2 last findings sealed the deal. Sarah Blaffer. Hurdy, working since the late 1970s and most fully in a 2007 paper, has argued that humans evolved as cooperative breeders. A human mother could produce a baby every 2 or 3 years, fast by ape standards, only because grandmothers, aunts, older siblings, and friends shared the work. The species did not run on solo motherhood, it ran on distributed care. Michael Tomasello and his team, since the early 2000s, have shown in experiment after experiment that human toddlers will hand an object to a partner for you to use. They will point for someone else's benefit. They will spontaneously coordinate without being asked. Tomasello calls it shared intentionality. A sense that we are agents together, not just agents near each other. Stack the 2. Cooperative breeding built families who shared food on purpose. Shared intentionality built the cognitive default for it. But the same system never dignified private speech. A baby's survival depended on being seen. An opinion's survival depended on being hidden. 2 doors opening onto the same house hung at very different hinges. So here is the small story buried inside your morning. You hand the bread over not because your mother told you to. You hand it over because the shape of that gesture, calories exchanged between present in the room humans, was the exact pattern your species machine-tuned to keep itself alive. That was the rule. Before agriculture, before cities, before written law. When food had to be shared, sharing happened. When food didn't, it stayed private. The line was drawn not by ethics but by spoilage and bulk. You keep your opinion hidden for the opposite reason. The thought is portable. It doesn't spoil. It costs nothing to keep. It can be hoarded indefinitely without anyone noticing. Your species spent 50,000 years tuning itself to share the bulky thing and to keep the cheap thing. We never lost the tuning. We just got more thoughts. Bred out. Secret in. That was the cost of a civilization. And it's the contract you keep signing 3 times a day between the coffee and the unspoken thing. If you're new here, the next video in this series goes the other way. It asks what the first cities did to the same bargain. The earliest legal codes in Mesopotamia, around 3000 BCE, aren't surprisingly about privacy. They're about grain stores and seals on warehouse doors. Once groups blew past about 150, privacy became a logistics problem, not a luxury. Subscribe, and the next one lands the moment it's out. So the slice of bread, same object, same gesture, same Tuesday. But now, in your hands, you can see it. Not kindness, but infrastructure. Not choice, but architecture. Not a polite reflex, but the running software of 100,000 years of cooperative breeding, public protein, and the Georgic insistence that the absent shall not hear what we say about them. That was the cost of a civilization. It's the contract you keep signing between the coffee and the